I never expected the quiet strength of an older woman to undo me. One glance, and my world shifted. The story opens with a tone of quiet observation, where the male narrator, a man in his mid-twenties, recalls the first time he noticed her. It wasn't a dramatic moment, no lightning bolt, no obvious declaration, but something quieter, subtler, that rooted itself in him. She was simply standing at the edge of the cafe terrace, waiting for her coffee, sunlight catching in her hair in a way that made her look both unassuming and impossibly graceful. She is a woman of about 40, poised, with a confidence that feels natural rather than performed. He notices the way her shoulders relax when she exhales, the way her fingers trace absent patterns on the paper cup she holds, as if she is lost in thought. There is no rush in her movements, no self-conscious attempt to command attention, yet she commands it all the same. For the narrator, this first observation sparks something he cannot immediately name. It is not only attraction, it's a sense of calm curiosity, an awareness of presence. He feels that odd pull where time slows just a little, and the ordinary background chatter of the cafe fades beneath the soft rhythm of her movements. He catches himself staring longer than he should, and when she lifts her gaze, eyes a deep brown, lined faintly at the corners with years of lived experience, he feels both exposed and strangely welcomed. He describes how that one glance lingers. It isn't flirtation. It is recognition. The kind of moment where two lives brush together with no words, but a quiet acknowledgement that something unspoken has passed between them. The narrator shares his inner conflict. He knows she is older, he can sense it not just in appearance but in the subtle weight she carries, the measured way she observes the world. For him, this age difference is not a barrier but a mystery, something that awakens a respect and admiration he has rarely felt with women his own age. Still, he hesitates, worried his interest might seem misplaced or misunderstood. The atmosphere is warm and slow, late afternoon light spilling golden across the cafe terrace, the muted clinking of glasses, a soft breeze stirring napkins on tables. Every detail sharpens his awareness of her presence. He doesn't approach her yet, instead, he sits with the quiet thrum of his heart, realizing that sometimes the beginning of a story is not in what is said, but in what is silently felt. This keynote establishes the foundation of their connection, not through spoken words but through attentive observation, emotional curiosity, and the first flicker of tension that promises more to come. The next time he sees her, it isn't by chance, at least, not entirely. The cafe has become his quiet refuge, and perhaps he returns more often now, though he tells himself it's for the coffee, for the atmosphere, for the steady hum of life around him. But when he notices her again, seated near the window with a book resting in her hands, he knows that a part of him was hoping for this very moment. She sits with effortless composure, her posture relaxed yet elegant, the kind of presence that makes the space around her feel grounded. A navy scarf drapes loosely around her shoulders, and he finds himself captivated by the small details, the way she tucks a strand of hair behind her ear, the quiet concentration as her eyes move across the page, the faint smile that flickers when she reads something that resonates. He chooses a table nearby, not too close, but not distant either. From where he sits, he can hear the faint rustle of her pages, the soft clink of her spoon against the porcelain cup. He debates with himself, caught between wanting to remain unnoticed and the pull to step beyond his hesitation. When the moment arrives, it's almost accidental. She drops her pen, and it rolls just far enough to stop near his foot. He bends instinctively, retrieving it before it can disappear beneath the table legs, and holds it out to her. Their eyes meet again, briefly, directly. "Thank you," she says, her voice warm, carrying a trace of lived experience, gentle but assured. "Of course," he replies, careful not to let his eagerness show. He notices her smile, not wide, not deliberate, but real. There is a pause, a shared quietness. She closes her book halfway, almost as though she's giving permission for conversation. He asks, softly, "What are you reading?" and she tilts the cover slightly so he can see the title, an old novel, worn at the edges, the kind that carries more history than paper. Their exchange is simple, almost mundane, but it leaves him with the faint electricity of connection. He realizes that it is not the content of their words that matters, but the way they linger, the subtle attentiveness in her gaze, the willingness to open a small window into her world. As the late afternoon light softens into evening, he notices how her scarf catches the glow of the fading sun, the fabric shifting gently as though carrying the day's last warmth. When she finally gathers her things to leave, she offers him another quiet smile, one that feels less like a polite courtesy and more like a silent acknowledgement that their paths may cross again. And in that moment, he understands that the story has already begun, in whispers and glances, before either of them dared to name it. The third encounter feels less like coincidence and more like inevitability. The cafe has become a quiet rhythm in his days, and when he walks in to find her seated at the same corner table, a strange steadiness settles over him. This time, she notices him first. Their eyes meet, and instead of the fleeting glance of strangers, it is a recognition, gentle, familiar. She nods toward the empty chair across from her, a silent invitation. He hesitates, just for a breath, then accepts. Sliding into the seat opposite her, he feels the air shift between them. Up close, he notices details he hadn't before, the faint trace of lavender from her perfume, the softness in the lines at the corner of her eyes, the quiet intelligence that lingers in her expression. Their conversation begins simply, almost cautiously. She asks what he does, and he tells her about his studies, his uncertain plans, the feeling of being in between stages of life. She listens with an attentiveness that feels rare, her gaze steady, her hands folded loosely around her cup, her silence inviting him to say more. In return, she speaks of her work, of years spent building a life that, though stable, sometimes feels like a carefully arranged pattern she is unsure she still belongs to. There is no judgment in their exchange, only a quiet understanding. He admires the way she speaks, with clarity, with a weight of experience that makes his own words feel tentative by comparison. Yet instead of intimidating him, it draws him closer. Her voice has a calmness that steadies him, and he finds himself confessing things he doesn't usually share, the small fears he carries, the uncertainty of not yet knowing who he is meant to become. At one point, a gust of wind pushes through the open terrace doors, lifting the scarf from her shoulder. Without thinking, he reaches to catch it, his fingers brushing lightly against the fabric before offering it back. For a moment, her hand touches his, a fleeting contact, warm and grounding. She doesn't pull away quickly, nor does she linger too long, but the softness in her eyes tells him she noticed. The atmosphere is unhurried. Evening stretches around them, cafe lights glowing softly, the low murmur of conversations fading into the background. Their words ebb and flow, but it is the pauses that feel most alive, the shared silences where their eyes linger, where breath slows, where the possibility of something more quietly takes root. By the time they part, nothing has been declared, nothing obvious exchanged. And yet, he walks away with a new awareness, that she is not simply someone he notices, but someone whose presence unsettles and steadies him all at once. A connection has been formed, fragile, unspoken, but undeniably real. Their next meeting isn't planned, yet it feels like it was waiting for them. He finds her at the cafe again, this time seated on the terrace beneath the warm glow of string lights. The evening is quieter than usual, and the soft hum of the city beyond creates a cocoon around their table. She looks up as he approaches, offering a smile that seems both reserved and relieved, as though she, too, has been waiting for this moment. They talk easily, slipping into the kind of conversation that flows without effort. He asks her about the novel she had been reading, and she tells him why she loves it, the way stories reveal hidden truths, the way time reshapes what once felt certain. Her voice is calm, layered with a kind of wisdom that makes him lean in, wanting to absorb every word. But beneath the warmth, he feels the flicker of tension, an awareness that this closeness is unusual. He wonders what others might see if they noticed them, a woman in her 40s, poised and self-assured, and a man not yet 30, drawn in by her presence. The thought unsettles him, though not enough to push him away. If anything, the awareness sharpens the air between them. At one point, she asks softly, almost as if testing him, "Don't you ever feel out of place here? Sitting with someone like me?" Her eyes search his, not accusing, but vulnerable in a way he hasn't seen before. He shakes his head gently. No. If anything, it feels like the opposite. Like this is where I'm supposed to be. His words are quiet but sincere, and he notices the way her shoulders ease, the faint exhale she didn't realize she was holding. Their hands find small excuses to brush, the passing of a menu, the shift of a teacup. Each touch carries a weight far greater than the gesture itself. His fingers graze hers once more, and for a moment, she doesn't move away. Instead, her eyes lower, as though acknowledging the unspoken truth pulsing between them. The night deepens. A breeze carries the scent of jasmine from a nearby planter, mingling with the warmth of coffee and candlelight. The setting feels almost conspiratorial, as though the world has stepped aside to give them space. Yet the awareness of boundaries lingers. He wants to reach for her hand, to let the truth spill free, but something, respect, hesitation, fear, keeps him still. When they part, there is no hug, no kiss, no declaration. But as he watches her walk away into the soft haze of street lamps, he realizes that the silence between them is no longer empty. It is full, charged with a quiet longing neither of them is ready to name aloud. The fifth time they meet, the cafe feels almost too public for the weight of their connection. She suggests a quieter spot, a small park not far away, where benches curve around a fountain and lamplight casts a soft glow across the water. The evening is cool, carrying the scent of damp grass and autumn leaves. He walks beside her, close enough to feel the warmth of her presence, yet careful to leave a breath of space between them. They settle on a wooden bench. She folds her scarf tighter around her, and he notices how the shadows soften across her face, highlighting both her grace and the quiet vulnerability she rarely shows. Their conversation drifts from books and work into something more personal. She tells him about the loneliness that creeps in during evenings, the silence of her home that sometimes feels too heavy. Her words are calm, but her eyes glisten faintly in the lamplight, betraying what her voice tries to steady. He listens, not with pity but with an attentiveness that steadies her. "You carry so much," he says softly. "But you make it look effortless." She lets out a quiet laugh, low, almost bitter. Effortless isn't the same as easy. There is a pause, heavy but not uncomfortable. He wants to reach for her hand but hesitates, unsure if it would cross the line she has carefully held. Instead, he shifts slightly closer, enough that their shoulders brush. The warmth of that small contact surprises them both. She doesn't move away. Her breathing slows, her hands resting loosely in her lap. He notices how her fingers twitch, as if tempted to move closer. The silence grows thick with possibility. Every detail, the faint splash of the fountain, the cool air around them, the rhythm of her breath, sharpens his awareness of her nearness. When she finally speaks again, her voice is quieter. "You're younger. People won't understand." He turns to her, his words steady but gentle. "Maybe. But people don't sit here with us. They don't know what this feels like." Her eyes meet his, and in that look, something shifts. Not a confession, not yet, but the recognition that they are standing at the edge of something neither of them can keep denying. For the first time, she allows herself to lean ever so slightly into him. Her head rests against his shoulder, tentative but trusting. He remains still, hardly daring to breathe, afraid that any movement might shatter the fragile courage of the moment. In that quiet closeness, under the muted glow of the park lamps, they both realize that the longing has outgrown silence. What began as chance meetings is now something undeniable, an unspoken bond pulling them into uncharted territory neither of them fully understands, yet neither wishes to escape. The next time they meet, it is no longer by accident, it is chosen. She calls him, her voice low but steady, asking if he would join her for a walk along the river. The evening air is cool, carrying the scent of rain on stone, and the water reflects the golden shimmer of street lamps. The world feels quieter here, as if it has stepped aside to give them space to breathe. They walk side by side, their footsteps unhurried. The city hums in the distance, but between them, silence feels alive, full of unspoken words pressing at the edges. He watches her profile as she speaks softly about her past, about choices that shaped her, regrets she rarely admits to anyone. Her honesty is fragile, carrying the weight of years, and he feels the depth of trust she places in him simply by sharing it. At one point, they stop near the railing overlooking the water. The river moves steadily, its current mirroring the pull between them. She wraps her arms around herself, more from hesitation than cold, and he finds himself turning toward her. Their eyes meet, longer this time, steadier. He reaches out slowly, giving her every chance to step back, and lets his fingers brush against hers. She doesn't withdraw. Instead, her hand shifts, almost uncertainly, until her palm rests against his. The contact is light, trembling with unspoken desire, but it anchors them both. Her breath catches, and she shakes her head slightly, as though scolding herself. This isn't supposed to happen. His voice is quiet, careful. Maybe not. But it is happening. There is a pause, charged and trembling. She looks at him with eyes that hold both resistance and longing, torn between the walls she has built and the temptation to let them fall. For a heartbeat, it feels as if the world has narrowed to the closeness between them, the warmth of their hands, the soft rhythm of her breath, the way the lamplight paints gold across her hair. He doesn't lean closer, doesn't break the fragile restraint holding them. Instead, he lets the silence speak for him, lets her feel the sincerity in his presence. The restraint itself becomes intimate, a kind of devotion that carries more weight than any impulsive gesture could. When she finally exhales, it is soft, almost a surrender. She doesn't move away. Instead, she lets her hand linger in his, her thumb brushing faintly against his skin as though testing the truth of this moment. They remain like that, side by side, hands entwined above the steady current of the river, two souls caught in the fragile, breathtaking space between what is forbidden and what feels undeniably right.